First, let's start with this case. My husband and I, both in our 30s, have a large family. His side includes his parents, 2 siblings, their spouses, and kids. My side includes my divorced parents, their new spouses, my siblings, their spouses, and kids. Altogether, we're well over 20 people, so family gatherings can get overwhelming for the host. For context, my divorced parents and their new spouses get along well, and there's no drama there. Last night, we celebrated Thanksgiving. As part of our family tradition, everyone brings a dish. To keep things organized, we usually communicate ahead of time to make sure there's a variety of food. My sister-in-law, who is married to my brother, said she'd bring her late mom's famous sweet potato casserole. It seemed like a thoughtful gesture since her mom passed away earlier this year, and making her recipe was a way to honor her memory. However, when I saw the dish, I couldn't help but feel concerned. Instead of one big casserole dish, she brought several small and medium containers of sweet potato casserole. It didn't smell strange, but it was very dry and didn't look like a freshly made casserole. Honestly, it made me wonder if these were leftovers from last year. I discreetly shared my concerns with my husband, and neither of us ended up trying it. After Thanksgiving, my mom called me to say my sister-in-law was upset because she noticed I hadn't tried her dish. I explained my concerns to my mom, who said I was being too picky and pointed out that a frozen casserole wouldn't last a year without molding. I countered by suggesting the small containers might mean she cut out the moldy parts and only served the good sections. After an awkward silence, we agreed to disagree and ended the call. Now, I feel bad for upsetting my sister-in-law, but I genuinely couldn't bring myself to eat something I wasn't completely sure was safe. Am I the one in the wrong here? Was I being overly cautious, or is it reasonable to prioritize food safety in this situation? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. Let's say, for argument's sake, that the casserole was made yesterday, on Thanksgiving. If you just decided you didn't want sweet potato casserole, you'd still be in this situation, and you'd still be justified in not eating it. Either way, the person who made the dish should not be closely monitoring who took some. That's very strange. Eat what you want to eat at these types of gatherings. You are entitled not to eat anything you don't want to. However, I suspect you may have made assumptions, and rather than ask to establish something, you have spread within the group. Even one person is spreading it, and runs the risk of it being overheard and/or getting back to the person, that it was leftovers that shouldn't be eaten, and as a result, managed to deliberately offend someone. For that, you don't need to apologize. When I make something, I don't bring it in a big pan/pot, because the ex-professional chef in me, who taught food hygiene and marked assessments for individual certification, finds it hard to store at home in the fridge, and then transport whilst guaranteeing no cross-contamination. So I use Tupperware-style containers, and yes, I have been known to use different sizes to fit a dish in. I also have Pyrex dishes that are oven-safe that have plastic lids to use when cool that I use instead of my big chef's Feed 100 pans. I have trained friends to bring stuff in Tupperware so it can be transported in a cool bag or box. Here in the UK, potluck-style dinners are rarer. Thank God, as bring a dish tends to result in food poisoning, especially in hot summers. Sweet potato casserole is more like a baked potato pie. It's not a wet casserole. It can look dry, but even if it looked over-dry, it could have just been overcooked. Even if it was frozen, it's fine as long as it was stored properly. You're not in the wrong for not eating something. No one can force you to do that. You're kinda rude for spreading rumors based off of weird assumptions. Frozen food doesn't go moldy. It's preserved as long as it's frozen. Once it's defrosted, normal food-safe rules apply. You have no idea if it was leftovers. Even if it was, there's nothing wrong with leftovers. Isn't this weird American holiday all about leftovers? If you wholly believe that eating frozen leftovers is unsafe, you're an idiot. But this situation doesn't make you the arsehole. Next up, this is my first time posting here, so bear with me. I'm a 48-year-old man and have been with my fiancé for 10 years. I have 4 kids, all over the age of 16, with only one still living at home. The others are either in college or have their own places. Every year, for every major event, Thanksgiving, Christmas, birthdays, you name it, I end up in the same frustrating situation. Someone will randomly ask me, often the day before or even the day of the event, "Are you coming to so-and-so's house for a holiday or celebration?" This Thanksgiving was no exception. My response is always the same: I wasn't invited. They then tell me something like, "Oh, we told Mom to invite you." And I always reply, "Well, clearly she didn't." This has been going on for years. Everyone knows my mother has a poor memory, but it feels like they use her as an excuse for not directly inviting me. It's like they can avoid taking responsibility by shifting the blame onto her. Despite this, the same thing happens for every Thanksgiving, Christmas, or family gathering. It's not just about the lack of invitations, though. For example, on my last birthday, my mom wished me a happy birthday on my social media feed. No one else in my family said anything. Not in person, not on social media. The only people who acknowledged my birthday were my fiancé and my kids. Keep in mind, we all live within 10 minutes of each other. At this point, I've been branded the black sheep of the family. They act like I'm antisocial and don't want to spend time with them, but the reality is I don't feel welcome. How am I supposed to know I'm invited if no one makes the effort to tell me? This has never been how our family operated in the past. 2 of my sisters are even wedding and event planners, so it's hard not to see this as passive-aggressive. It feels like they're intentionally leaving me out while trying to avoid guilt by saying, "Oh, we told Mom to invite you." Honestly, I'm at the point where I don't even want to be invited anymore. I'm tired of being made to feel like I'm avoiding them when it's them who seem to be avoiding me. I didn't go to Thanksgiving this year because, again, I wasn't explicitly invited. Now, everyone is upset with me and acting like it's just typical of me to not show up. Am I wrong for feeling like I deserve to be properly invited to things? Is it unreasonable to expect an actual invitation instead of being expected to just know I'm welcome? If I were hosting a party, I'd make the effort to invite people. I wouldn't just assume they'd figure it out on their own. I'm so frustrated and upset, and I don't know if I'm the one in the wrong here. Am I in the wrong for not attending something I wasn't invited to? Or am I overthinking this? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong, but devil's advocate. Is it possible they just assume that you will be coming to these events? Like, if you have 10 core family members and you always do Thanksgiving and Christmas together, could it just be assumed that it's an open invitation without needing to formally invite all 10 people each time? Don't get me wrong, I'm on your side, but you could always call them ahead of the holiday and say, "What are the plans this year?" or something like that. Sometimes families assume that the same close relations are invited by default. You're not in the wrong. It sucks not to be invited to get-togethers, especially family events. Growing up, my nickname was Me Too, because my dad would ask the whole family, "Who wants to get ice cream?" And I'd always assume I wasn't included in those asked, so I'd ask, "Me too." I've never really shook the feeling that I'm not included in an invitation to everyone. I'm wondering if you don't have a bit of the same about you. I'm not antisocial, but I rarely will, if ever, invite myself or ask to be invited. Talk with them. Ask them if you are invited. They could be assuming an open invitation, and you are assuming you need an individual invitation for each family event. They were upset you weren't there. They missed you. You're not in the wrong, or maybe everyone sucks. More info is needed because something is also off here. Do you talk to any of these people regularly? If so, how does holiday plans not organically come up in the conversation? Communication is a two-way street. If you never reach out to them and rely on them to call you or initiate contact every time, they likely do perceive you as not investing in the relationships, so they don't either. If you're speaking to them all regularly and it's never mentioned, that's probably a different story. You could also ask about holiday plans, especially for major holidays, as well if you're interested in attending them. Next up, I'm a 14-year-old girl and the youngest child of my mother, who we'll call Ma, a 46-year-old woman, and my father, who we'll call Pa, a 45-year-old man. My parents have been married for 20 years, but their relationship has always been far from ideal. Since I was very young, they've fought constantly, and the arguments are often over the smallest, most trivial things. In almost every fight, it's clear my dad is the one starting things, as he always seems to find a reason to get upset. Yesterday was no exception. My parents spent the entire morning yelling at each other about something I didn't fully catch because I wasn't paying attention. What I did hear, however, was my dad threatening divorce, while my mom said they should just go through with it. This isn't unusual. Whenever they fight, they often throw around the idea of divorce, but nothing ever comes of it. As they were going back and forth, I finally had enough. I walked out of my bedroom and told them that they should get a divorce because their marriage is, frankly, sad, and I was tired of constantly hearing them fight over nonsense. My mom got upset and said I had gone too far by insulting their marriage and calling it sad. My dad, on the other hand, hasn't spoken to me at all since I said it. Now, I'm conflicted. Part of me feels like I overstepped because it's not my place to tell my parents what they should or shouldn't do in their marriage. But another part of me feels justified because I've been dealing with this toxic environment for as long as I can remember, and I spoke out of frustration. So am I wrong for saying what I did? Or was it fair for me to express how their constant fighting affects me? Let's start judging. I'm so sorry. I was in a similar position. You are a person in that house. Loud fights affect you. You are not a little kid anymore, and you have every right to let them know how their fighting affects you. I wouldn't be hopeful that your opinion carries any weight with them, but you have every right to express it. You're not in the wrong. Do your best to recognize that this isn't healthy, and make sure that your own future relationships don't mirror what they have going on. It's a sad cycle that's easy to get trapped in. You're not in the wrong in my book, but personally, I'd avoid saying anything around either of those two. From your short narrative, it seems they both just live to find something to fuel their fight anger. In this respect, they may be perfect for each other. Meanwhile, use earplugs/buds, doors, get the best education you can, and in a few years, move out and create your own peaceable kingdom. Next up, I'm a 17-year-old girl, and my sister, who is 19, and I do not have a relationship with our dad. He has always been extremely manipulative and narcissistic, and it took both of us a long time to cut him off for our own mental health and well-being. Our decision wasn't easy, but we're both in a much better place now. He no longer has legal custody of me. However, my brother, who is 21, and my younger sister, who is 10, still have a relationship with him. This year, my sister and I debated whether to attend Thanksgiving with my dad's side of the family. My dad constantly badmouths us to his family and even to our younger sister, claiming that we hate all of them and that we cut him off just to hurt him. We decided that, despite everything, we'd go this year to show that we don't harbor ill feelings toward the rest of the family and to try to be the bigger people. We texted our grandparents to let them know we planned to attend, but they asked to speak with us first. The conversation didn't go well. Our grandparents told us they weren't willing to have a relationship with us unless we also had a relationship with our dad. They said that if we weren't willing to call him or visit him in person to talk things out, we were not welcome at Thanksgiving. They also mentioned that during last Christmas, they noticed visible tension between us and our dad, which they found hurtful. For context, last Christmas, my sister and I tried to keep things civil. We let him hug us and even answered politely when he asked how we were. But apparently, our efforts weren't enough for them. We were appalled by their stance. No relationship with Dad equals no Thanksgiving. My sister and I both agreed we weren't comfortable speaking to our dad and decided it would be best not to attend. We knew this decision would have consequences, especially with our brother. We also spoke to our younger sister to let her know we wouldn't be going and reminded her that we love her. She mentioned some things she overheard, which only solidified our decision, but those details aren't relevant here. Fast forward to today. My brother came to our house and asked my sister what time we planned to be at Thanksgiving tomorrow. She explained our decision and the conversation we had with our grandparents. He stormed out of the house, saying he wouldn't attend the family dinner my mom is hosting on Saturday with her side of the family. My mom overheard this and has been visibly upset and sad since. My brother often sides with my dad and believes my mom is the villain in this situation. This couldn't be further from the truth. She has always been loving, supportive, and kind. She constantly tries to keep the peace, even though my brother and dad frequently put her in difficult positions. I hate seeing my mom so upset. Part of me feels like I should have just sucked it up, talked to my dad, and gone to Thanksgiving to keep the peace. But doing so would violate my boundaries, and even thinking about interacting with my dad makes me feel physically ill. Still, I feel guilty about how this has impacted my mom and her relationship with my brother. Am I the jerk for standing by my boundaries and not going to Thanksgiving? Or should I have just gone to avoid all this family drama? Let's start judging. You're not in the wrong. The conversation didn't go well. They basically told us they were not willing to have a relationship with us outside of my dad. And if we weren't willing to have a relationship with my dad and either call him or go to his house in person to talk to him, we were not welcome at Thanksgiving. Your dad's family is being very short-sighted, but I can see your dad's problems come from his family. Fast forward to today, my brother came to our house and asked my sister what time we were planning on being there tomorrow. She told him that we were not going because we had a conversation with them, etc., etc. He stormed out of our house, saying that he wasn't going to be there on Saturday, my mom's dinner with her side of the family. Your brother sounds as bad as your dad and his family. I really feel for your mom. Good luck, OP. You're not in the wrong. You have to realize that even by giving in to your brother, who's been brainwashed by your dad, you're letting your father win, because he wants to cause this strife and drama. It's the reason he badmouths you and your sister to his parents and your siblings. All you and your sister can do is be there for your mom and be strong. Remember, you didn't do this. All you did was put your mental health ahead of narcissist ego. Every day that you don't buckle is another day that pisses him off and makes those around him question his version of events. You're not in the wrong. You did what's best for you and your sister. Your mom's upset because it's a tough situation, but it's not on you. You're setting boundaries, and that's important.